Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents To Catch a Flame by Kimberly Cates, narrated by Timothy Campbell. Prologue. England, 1768. The night roiled with fury, gnarled tree branches tearing at the darkness like greedy fingers hungering for some unseen prey. The moon, a single ghoulish eye, leered down from the heavens, casting eerie shadows over the mounted figure racing along the perilous ribbon of road. Jagged stones and twisted roots snarled across the crude pathway beneath the magnificent animal's thundering hooves, threatening to plunge both horse and rider into the devil's outstretched palm. The devil. The rider shuddered, casting a glance over one broad shoulder as he attempted to see what lay behind him. It was as if he could feel Lucifer's own breath hot upon his nape, could feel the claws of death curling inexorably toward him, and, more terrifying still, toward the son he treasured more than his own life. For he had seen, witnessed. No. He drove his heels deep into the horse's ribs, and the beast surged forward as if it too sensed the evil all about them. It's madness. Impossible! But his mind would give him no peace. The darkness seemed to twist into images from his worst nightmare, the folds of an ebony cloak, a face lead-painted white. The devil's own. The rider reined his mount to the west, where the woods thinned slightly. Slender fingers of light flickered in the distance, beckoning, welcoming. He urged his horse forward, dizzy with relief as he neared safe haven. But suddenly his mount whinnied in fright, rearing as an apparition was conjured from the very mists. Horrified, the rider's gaze locked upon the figure that stood stark against the night, a cape whipping back in the wind like the wings of a fallen angel. Even in the meagre light of the moon the apparition's eyes burned twin pits of hate, turning the rider's blood to ice. Desperately he groped for his pistol while struggling to cling to his mount's back. But it was as if the horse itself was possessed. He felt something drive him back in the saddle, his legs tearing loose from the horse's barrel, the reins ripping from his hands. Laughter echoed through the night as he hurtled through the darkness. Terror lanced through him, not for his own life, but for his son's. His son. There would be no one, no hope to save him now. Except maybe but one man, one chance. He screamed the name as the gates of hell yawned beneath him, plunging him into death's embrace. Griffin! 3 months later, Lord Griffin Stone sailed back to England, the lazily arrogant mouth that had bewitched 100 ladies now hard with grief, and his eyes, the blue-grey of a tempest-tossed sea, dark with the pain of loss. Chapter 1. The brace of pistols appeared ludicrous in Molly Maguire's small-boned hands, and she stared down at the weapons pillowed upon her lap, her huge eyes sombre. "Beau, this is madness." A warning echoed softly about the tiny inn-room. "You cannot ride tonight." "Don't be gudging, Moll." Isabeau DeBurgh tossed her flame-red curls, her green eyes snapping with excitement as she retrieved the weapons, her most cherished possessions. "It is a perfect night for raiding." "A perfect night to get yourself hanged." "Molly, can't you see it?" Isabeau made her most ghastly demon face, her voice dropping into the low, eerie tones that she knew sent shivers up her friend's spine. "There is moon enough to cast sinister shadows." She fluttered her fingers, drawing nearer to Molly. "And the wind whispers like haunts through the branches. It makes those pompous jewel-encrusted oafs who travel the high roads quiver down to their diamond shoe buckles, even before they've left the safety of their fatal musicale." "Beau," Molly said, shrinking back against the crude wooden chair, "you know I loathe it when you make your voice that way." But Beau ignored her plea, unable to resist such a susceptible audience. "And aristocrats," she continued in a low purr. "They'll have filled their coachman with ominous warnings, and be clinging to their treasures like a mummy to its babe. I'll wait in the darkness, while they shiver with images of night dragons and ghosts in their heads, and then, whoosh!" Beau leaped toward Molly with an ear-splitting howl. "I'll spring from the shadows like a nightmare come real." Molly's squeak as she skittered from the chair filled Beau with glee. With a jaunty grin, Beau straightened. Skirting the narrow bed and slant-top table, she strode toward the looking-glass to arrange the froth of ruffles tumbling down her shirt front. "And then, Molly, my girl," Beau observed, giving her black breeches a pat of infinite satisfaction.
"Those pot-bellied curs will hurl their pretties at me, and gladly, relieved that it is not the devil himself come to steal away their souls. Pray God they don't hurl something else at you, like a musket ball or a sword."
There was an unaccustomed edge to Molly's gentle voice that stung Beau more than she would admit.
"This is no game you are playing at, whether you believe it or not. Look how many highwaymen have been taken to Tyburn Fair, the gibbets lying the roadside, everywhere."
Molly shuddered, and Beau's own mind filled with images of the ironbound structures dangling tarred corpses like grisly fruit, a warning to any who would dare take to the high toby. But she brushed the sobering thoughts away. Her eyes danced like twin imps as she grinned.
"They'll have to catch me first, and no mere mortal could ever clap the bold devil's flame in chains." "You cannot know that for certain,"
Molly cut in, wringing her hands.
"It was bad enough before when it was just Bow Street runners you had to fear, but ever since that Grand Duke was found—"
Molly nibbled her lower lip.
"The only reason you've given half a thought to the Duke of Ravensmoor's demise is that it is splashed all over the Spectator that his scoundrel brother has returned to England. The infamous Lord Griffin Stone, duellist extraordinaire, heartless rogue. No doubt he is greedy to pick his brother's bones." "I don't care a whit about Lord Griffin, nor about any of those silly scandals. I tell you there's been something afoot for months now, something wicked. The only thing wicked afoot that night was Ravensmoor's horsemanship. He deserved to snap his full neck bolting out on those roads in the middle of the night." "But you race about all the time," Molly blustered. "Darkness has never stopped you, and you know as well as I that the Duke didn't merely tumble from his saddle. The streets have been abuzz ever since. It takes precious little to set these streets astir. Ravensmoor fell from his horse, and then what about Lily Times and Rebecca Mathers? I doubt either of them ever touched a saddle in their lives."
Even Beau could not stem an inward shiver at this last. The corpses of the two low-born women had been discovered in the dense woodland skirting the Blousy Nail Inn. It was whispered that even their mothers could not have recognized their faces, slashed with symbols that could have been carved by Satan's own hand. Stiffening her shoulders, Beau forced a dismissive snort.
"It was awful, what befell those women. But there is no proof the victims were Rebecca or Lil, and furthermore, the murders had nothing to do with Ravensmoor, and still less to do with me. I am no dainty wildflower to be crushed beneath some night stalker's heel. I am the bold devil's flame, highwayman, brigand. What you are, Isabeau DeBurgh, is a fool if you believe yourself immune. I know you think me a coward, and maybe I am, but this time it is different, Beau. I feel something is amiss, feel it to the marrow of me bones." "What? You fear some monster lurking in your imagination will swallow up the devil's flame? I think not."
Beau's eyes glinted with amused arrogance.
"Haven't you read the pamphlets of late, Mistress Maguire? The flame is a monster of a rogue, with blood-hued eyes and fists the size of anvils. His horse is as swift as death and thrice as daring."
Beau scooped up her jaunty cocked hat, adjusting its crimson plume. Her irreverent gaze flicked from the headgear to her own petite form, mirrored in the looking-glass.
"It must be the hat."
Despite her best efforts, the corners of Molly's mouth twitched in the hint of a smile.
"If it were that simple, I'd take the thing and stuff it in the fire, so you would make an end to this idiocy. I swear—"
"No, you never swear," Beau replied, warming at the very real concern in her friend's voice.
"You are entirely too sweet and good to keep company with a reprobate like me."
Molly looked away from Beau and caught her lower lip with her teeth. Beau watched as Molly paced to where a black velvet cloak, prime pickings from a snipe-nosed baronet, was spread upon a narrow bed, the richness of the garment an odd contrast to the humble chamber. Molly smoothed a tiny wrinkle from the fabric.
"Beau, I can't help but blame myself for—"
she faltered.
"For driving you to ride. It is because of me you need risk again so soon."
"Bah," Beau denied gruffly, but she could not meet her friend's eyes.
"Am I not the daughter of Six-Coast Rob, one of the greatest brigands ever to ride? It is just another grand adventure, and I revel in 'em. I only wish you had—"
The bantering tone faded from her voice.
"Wish you had told me things were right again before—"
Beau's voice trailed off. She hated the flush that sprang to Molly's cheeks as they both recalled the previous night. Beau had returned from a fortnight's amusement at Medlinham Fair, only to find Molly painfully absent at old Nell's bidding.
He was not so odious a man."
Molly rubbed her fingers upon her petticoats, as though to cleanse them of grime.
"And it was over quite soon."
Beau's heart twisted. Shame darted into her friend's brown eyes. Shame, and fear that seldom left them for long.
I think I shall become used to it after a time. Oh, Nell claims— Oh, Nell is a shriveled-up bag of nonsense, and you're a goose to listen to her. You'll not become used to any such thing with me around. And now Owen will be riding too, and will be able to help you.
The thought of Molly's 15-year-old younger brother soured Beau's mood, but she hid her misgivings. Owen Maguire was 5 feet of bumbling, awkward trouble, with a temper too quick by half and a pistol aim so poor it was whispered he couldn't hit the Tower of London if he had his nose smack on Traitor's Gate. And tonight the Devil's Flame, the highwayman rogue known throughout London for cunning and daring, would be joined by that green lad. Molly had called Beau's rides madness before, but Beau knew it was pure insanity to lug along a boy whose temper was tinder to a brush fire. And yet, Beau's lips compressed with uncustomary grimness. Last night, when Molly had returned from her assignation with one of the brothel's patrons, there had been stark fear in the girl's eyes. Timid Molly could scarcely speak to strangers without going white in the face, and to steal away with them to a room upstairs, endure their pawing and grunting, was a horror beyond Beau's imaginings. The thought of that fate made Beau's skin crawl. She had wanted to rail at her friend, furious that the girl had not warned her that she needed more coin to pay her way at the so-called inn. But one look at the suffering in Molly's face and Beau had been unable to stay angry. She had merely drawn out her pistols and told Owen that tonight he would begin to learn the highwayman's trade.
You are taking him tonight?
Molly's nervous quaver broke into Beau's thoughts. Beau drew her soft leather boots over the tight black breeches she always wore.
I'm taking him tonight. Beau, he's not the steadiest sort, Owen isn't. I fear. I know it's hard, but he must learn some skill with which to support the both of you, else you'll be trapped in the blousy Nell forever.
A defensive note crept into Beau's voice.
I wish I could school him in a prince's trade, or perhaps a solicitor's, but I can't. I can only teach him what I know. And pray becomes decent enough at it that if anything should befall me, you both will survive, she thought. I know it's not the best solution, she said aloud, but I'll take good care of him for you, Moore.
Molly's dark-lashed eyes flashed up, a sad smile on her lips.
Of course you will. And as for what you are schooling him in, Beau, no one knows better than I how generous you've been with the two of us. We'd not have survived a month in this city without you. Do you remember when you found us? That awful old baker had me by the petticoats, and Owen looked like a starved rat.
Beau shook her head, remembering the scrawny pair the two had made, crofter children whose parents had been killed by a runaway coach. London had been a labyrinth of terror and cruelty for the orphaned Maguires. They had been cowering before a flour-spattered baker who had discovered them pouring through the refuse heap behind his shop. Molly, a wide-eyed 8-year-old, Owen 5. The baker had threatened to see them clapped up in Newgate for thieving when Beau came upon them. All of 10 she had been, nettlesome as a briar patch, all swagger and snap. Hands on hips she had stomped up and let fly a string of curses so blue they made even the grizzled old man blush. Then, with a well-honed instinct for discovering the weakness beneath one's armour, she had warned the old man that if he persisted, she would bring the wrath of the most feared brigand in all of London down on his head, Jonathan Everard Ramsay, known throughout the city as Gentleman Jack. The baker had roared with laughter, until he had peered into Beau's crystal-green eyes. "It is you, then," the man had said to Beau as he let Molly loose with a surprising gentleness. "The girl Jack tames, daughter of 6 Coach Rob."
No one tames me, Beau had flashed back. Jack only keeps me around because I'm so blessed entertaining.
Gentleman Jack keeps you around because you be the child of the greatest highwayman that ever lived. Take these 2 whining pups if you've a mind to, your ladyship. The baker had reached out, ruffling Beau's wild curls with a smile. "Your pap, he robbed me once, and finer manners I never did see. Made it seem near a privilege that he chose us, he did. I remember him always. Do him honour go. Do honour to the memory of 6 Coach Rob and his most beautiful lady." Beau had puffed up with pride. She remembered so little of the father who'd taken her on wild rides perched upon his glorious night-black horse, the father whose scarlet satins and ringing laughter had delighted her, the father who had meant the world to the beautiful, gently bred woman who'd been Beau's mother. A twinge of grief stung Beau as she thought of her mother's porcelain, delicate face the last time she saw it. The liveliness and laughter that always bubbled in Lady Liana had ebbed away, as though the hangman who had dealt her husband death had opened her veins as well. They had buried Lady Liana at Rob's side a fortnight after his friends had cut him down from the gibbet. 7-year-old Beau had been frightened then, for the first time in her life, and furious with her parents for leaving her alone. Yet she had not been alone for long. He had ridden up, astride a blooded sorrel, his plumes a splash of colour upon the drizzly grey sky. The devilish handsome face that made women swoon had been astonishingly solemn. He had swung down from his horse in a flurry of sapphire cloak, then strode toward the cluster of mourners bringed about the new-dug grave. Straight away he had come to Isabeau and had swept the cocked hat from his head, dropping to one knee before her. "Your most obedient servant, my Lady Isabeau," he had said softly. "My name is Gentleman Jack Ramsay. I rode with your father. I will take care of you now." And he had, that young man with his flashing smile and his ready wit. He had schooled Beau in reading and ciphering, had even tutored her in the classics, which she loathed. He had struggled to teach her manners as well, in memory of her gently bred mother. Yet she had been too much Rob's child to play the budding lady for long, and the swagger, sparkling eyes, and bold ways that had winged her father into legend delighted Jack Ramsay in spite of himself.
"Remember how poor Mr. Ramsay looked when you dragged Owen and me into the inn?"
Molly's voice shook Beau from her unaccustomed foray into the past. Smiling ruefully, Beau met her friend's eyes. After a moment, both girls broke into grins.
"It was a sight worth a king's purse,"
Beau said with great relish.
"Gentleman Jack nearly swallowed a leg of capon whole. One can hardly blame him. You breezed him with the two of us in tow and told him you were keeping us as pets, like his current lighter loves infernal pugs."
Beau tugged at one of Molly's yellow curls.
"At least you didn't keep poor Jack awake by yapping all night long. And I kept the both of you in my chambers so you didn't sleep at the foot of his bed. Remember how he loathed those curs? He might have wed that empty-headed Miranda if it hadn't been for those dogs."
"No." There was wistfulness in Molly's voice.
"I think even then he was waiting for someone else."
Beau whirled around, swooping up the ribbon she used to bind her hair. But instead of catching back the flame-hued tresses, she merely fingered the wisp of satin.
"More? No more, I promise. I didn't intend to plague you. I only wish Mr. Ramsay were here to stop this foolishness. Jack is still off at Medlingham trying to charm the Lady March out of her panniers. It is a good place for him, too, ever since that idiot Sir Mandalay bragged to the ton that the minuscule scar on his cheekbone was the mark of Gentleman Jack. Half the knaves in London have been haunting the high roads trying to get their own scar to impress the ladies. It's most annoying. Of course, I suppose I could have come up with a mark of my own, or perhaps I should put a ring in my victims' noses. This isn't a jest, Beau, or some grand adventure. I can't bear the thought of you riding again on my account. I'm not 8 years old any more. I'm not a green country girl adrift in London. I have to take care of myself now, and you can't keep charging in trying to rescue me." "Why not? If I choose to. I don't choose to let you hang for me, Beau. No, nor Owen either."
She'll not be hanging, Go," a wheezing voice cut in. "It'll be a far worse end the spiteful Oiden would come to."
They both turned toward the doorway, and Beau sensed Molly's sick dread as Nell Rooligan shuffled into the room. The old woman's pale eyes peered out from pouches of sagging flesh. A net of wrinkles quilted her jowls despite the cork plumper she used to attempt to hide her sunken cheeks. Liberal swipes of rouge had been swabbed with a hare's foot over lead-painted skin, and a preposterous-looking wig perched askew upon her low brow. Yet despite her ridiculous appearance, Nell Rooligan was seldom dismissed as a pathetic crone. She seemed to wear a mantle of mysticism about her hunched shoulders, a mysticism incongruously mingled with stark practicality. It was as if she could see to the core of one's soul and jeered at the vulnerabilities within. Most people who crossed the aged Lightskirt's path sought her favour with near desperation, but Beau had always regarded the old woman with contempt. This emotion was returned tenfold by the whore mistress, who would never forgive the fiery, beautiful girl for escaping the lucrative calling Nell had planned for her. Nell lumbered forward, a pewter tray heavy with meat pasties held in her fists. She set it down upon the trestle with a thud, smacking her lips as she eyed Beau.
"You're gonna ride and take that worthless Owen with you?"
Beau started at the old woman's words. She never told anyone but Molly when she took to the road, and as for her plan to bring Owen along, she'd certainly never betrayed that. Despite the smile she forced to her lips, Beau couldn't help the stirring of unease that crept through her.
"Listening at wars again now?"
Beau asked, sauntering over to the tray and helping herself to a rich meat pie.
"I need not stoop to so common a trick. I have other ways of knowing, of seeing."
Nell's tongue curled about the words, her tone intended to unsettle.
"And I've seen far more than just your foolish plots, Isabeau DeBurgh. Something be afoot this night. Something deadly evil. I heard the night a-whispering.
Save your Banbury tales to scare the babes by the fire.
A Banbury tale, is it?
Nell cackled, and the fine hairs at Beau's nape prickled.
Dismiss it as such if you be a blind fool. I warned Lily times that evil was lurking before she disappeared, but she'd not heed my warning either. And they swooped her off. The hauntings did, just like I said they would.
Molly's gasp made Beau quell her own unease.
The only thing that swooped Lil off was some handsome soldier, Beau said breezily. The chit was always slavering after anything in regimentals. Even now she's most likely ensconced in her lover's room, being petted and spoiled with fans and silks and such frippery.
Nay, she be deep in the cold earth, a-rotting, whatever's left of her. Remember that I warned you when they be feasting upon you.
They? Who in thunder are they? Dragons in the forest? Flesh-eating monsters?
Beau let her voice drop to a mocking, eerie tone.
Ooh, beware, little girl, or the harpies will feast on you.
It won't be harpies, my fine miss. It'll be something more sinister still. And you'll run afoul of it this night, mark my words. It is dangerous upon the road.
Ah, my eternal thanks, O sage and wondrous sorceress. Your revelation rivals those of the prophets. It is dangerous upon the road.
Beau struck her palm to her brow with all the drama of a Drury Lane actress.
I had no idea those knaves were firing real pistol balls at me these many months.
The crone's face remained enigmatic. Her expression gave Beau the strange sensation of teetering upon the brink of some unseen chasm.
Come now, Nell. Beau was stunned at the cajoling tones in her own voice. Even demons wouldn't dare draw fire from these pistols. Of course I could strap on one of Jack's swords for good measure, but considering what a clumsy oaf I am with a blade, it would only give my foe some fair advantage.
The old woman straightened, and Beau felt another twinge of foreboding. Nell drew nearer, her breath reeking of garlic and onion as it blew hot on Beau's face.
Go ahead, Isabeau DeBurgh, Nell said. Laugh at my demons. But the haunts that are winging about tonight will not fall beneath your pistol fire, nay, nor Jack's blade. You'll see, aye, as Rebecca Mathers did, and Lily, when she failed to heed my warning.
Beau tucked her pistol in her sash, the weapon suddenly feeling too heavy to hold. The tiny inn-room rippled away like her reflection in a pond, everything melting into a blur as Beau's eyes locked with those of Nell Ruligan. Never before had Beau dreaded the darkness in the thick woods, or what lay within any man's soul. Yet, for an instant, just an instant, bold Isabeau DeBurgh tasted fear. Chapter 2. The post-chase careened through the night at its wide-eyed driver's command. Near the sides of the road, trees clawed at the bruise-coloured sky, and in the distance, thunder rumbled.
"He's crazed, he is, Hadley,"
the spindly postilion choked out to the driver as he clung white-knuckled to the edge of his seat.
"Mad, one to set out upon the road at such an hour. It is suicide, I say, pure and simple, and you're no better than he is, driving like a bloody whip. Should have stayed in my own bed. I should have let the two of you go to the devil."
The grizzled driver cast the man a bleary smile, eyes bloodshot from gin. "Think of it this way, Tavish. If we do overturn, we won't need to worry about being set upon by those highwaymen you quake over every time we make a trek." Tavish yelped as the vehicle struck a stone and lurched to one side.
"I take my chances with an honest brigand any day rather than be at the mercy of you, you drunken sod. Aye, or that madman below."
The driver barked a stiff laugh. "Don't be letting my Lord Stone hear you blathering, or you're apt to find yourself skewered upon his spit. He's killed men for less, so I'm told. Finest swordsman in all England he was before he was banished to the colonies."
"There's a fine place for the likes of him, full of wild red Indians and such," Tavish said. "So why the devil did God send him back to plague us civilized folk?"
"It's because of his brother." All jesting fled from the coachman's rough voice. "The good Duke died upon this very road." As he spoke, the dirt track narrowed. "You'd best take up Old Bess, Tavish," the driver said. "It's Rogue's Row ahead."
"Rogue's Row?"
Tavish echoed, unable to quell his fear. He groped with chill fingers for the firearm at his feet.
"You should drag your Lord Stone up here, if he's such a wonder with the blade. Let him fend off the brigands he's so eager to tilt with."
Nay, Tavish, Lord Stone and his like don't match their sacred blades with raw brigands. They hire us to bloody our hands that take the musket fire.
May rotten hell,
Tavish said prayerfully.
The darkness grew deeper as the woods closed skeletal fingers about the lurching chase, until even Tavish lapsed into silence. No man dared the perilous stretch of road known as Rogue's Row without feeling death's cold blade whisper near his throat. No man except Lord Griffin Stone. Griffin lounged against the worn squabs of the chase as he watched the violet shadows of the trees pass by. No sense of danger haunted him, no trickle of dread stiffened his broad-muscled shoulders. The stark branches held a fascination for him, a kind of terrible beauty that set his blood pounding hot in his veins, tightening every nerve in his body with anticipation. But it was no phantom brigand that drew Griffin's attention, no fear of blazing pistols or gleaming blades slicing into flesh. He watched the mist-wreathed land, which still seemed like an illusion from his most secret dreams. England. His lips curved with cynical amusement as he fought the odd urge to reach out his gloved fingers and brush away the darkness that shielded the countryside from his sight. But he could picture it clearly, in his mind, the tangle of hawthorn and oak, the jewel-bright wildflowers that clustered about the tree roots and scaled the hedgerows. It had been 10 years since he had last seen Norfolk. 10 years since he had plunged recklessly down this same road, fleeing disaster, betrayal, and heartbreak. Fleeing all that he was. Back then the far-off American colonies had been his only hope, exiled as he was for the consequences of his fiery temper. At the time he thought it was the end of the world, but the world had a way of spinning relentlessly onward. And the gods who presided over mankind had a sense of mischievous irony. Were they laughing even now as they watched this prodigal son return home, summoned by the very brother who had cast him out so long ago? Griffin's smile faded as he reached into the pocket of his gold-embroidered waistcoat to figure a stiff edge of vellum, a broken wax seal clinging to its edges. Despite the darkness, he could picture his brother's precise script and the lion's salient crest that had graced the seal of Ravensmoor for generations. The Duke of Ravensmoor's last will and testament. Griff felt a dull twist of grief mingled with the disbelief that had tormented him since he had broken the letter's seal. William. Griff closed his eyes, his mind filling with images of pale brown curls crushed into obedience by stern, brushing, solemn eyes and shoulders that had seemed to bear the weight of the world. Until death had swept away the one person Griffin Stone thought was invincible. William, the strong, the ever-sensible, the elder brother who had dragged Griffin out of a score of childhood scrapes. William, who had stalked the length of his study at Darkling Moor that night 10 years ago, furious, frustrated, yet strangely broken, as he banished Griffin from England. Griff had hated him then, as William had let loose anger pent up over the years. "You fool, you cursed fool!" Griff could still hear William storm. "Do you not see what you have done? You've ruined your life over a woman you won't even remember in a year, a harlot who has played mistress to half of George's court." Griff winced at the memory of how he had lunged for his sword hilt, seething with fury. "You'll not insult Elise. I've killed one man on her behalf. Another will scarce make a difference." "Oh, your grand duel," William had laughed with disgust as he forced Griffin's sword back into its scabbard. "Your grand and glorious duel. You killed her husband, an old man, who abused her. He struck her, and while she was out dangling after a train of green pups such as you. I only wish Sir Lionel had struck her before she infected you with her poison. But it is too late now, too late, Griff. Sir Lionel is dead, and this time there is nothing I can do to save you from yourself. Bloody pompous bastard!" Even now, 10 years later, the hasty words seared Griffin with regret. "What would you know of a man's passions? Your blood runs so cold it is a miracle you got an heir at all. And as for me, as for Elise, I will love her forever. Forever!" "Then I pity you, Griff." William had turned away, and Griffin had detected the slightest catch in his brother's voice. "For Elise Devan has forgotten you already." Griffin swore under his breath, now raking his fingers through unruly locks that were dark as sin. He wished he could scatter the shades of the past, drive back the memory of his words and his cursed stupidity. But the shadows would not be banished, and remorse gnawed inside him. If only he'd been able to tell his brother that he was right. Griff's passion for Elise Devan had faded almost the moment he stepped upon the bustling shores of Virginia. In his ignorance, Griff had thought never to feel joy again, but hope and renewal had bubbled up like a spring in the virgin lands,
The new world had offered the kind of adventure Griffin had always craved. He'd soon understood the wisdom of
Sample complete. Ready to continue?